Tylar was devastated when she learned that her mother had given her diary to authorities. She had called Steven several times while he was at work until he drove to her house. After he arrived, the couple allegedly discussed running away to San Francisco to commit suicide, drawing their inspiration from Romeo and Juliet. The next evening, June 11th, 2009, there were several phone calls exchanged between Tylar and Steven. Tylar was giving her lover status reports about her mother. She told him that Joanne was drinking that night and would tell him if she was still awake. Just a little before midnight, Steven went to the Witt household while Joanne was asleep in her room. Soon after midnight, the young couple would leave the home to stock up on supplies before making their way to San Francisco. After completing their shopping, the couple went to their friend Matt Widman's house, where Steven and Tylar dyed their hair black. Then the three went back to the town center to join more friends and to purchase marijuana, cocaine, and ecstasy. They then decided to go to the empty Colver house, where Steven and Tylar cooked ramen noodles, while contemplating whether or not they should let Matt in on their little secret. But the secret they wanted to tell wasn't the Romeo and Juliet pact they planned on carrying out that weekend. It was something that happened at midnight. After indulging in a line of cocaine, Steven thought Widman was ready to hear what happened. It did seem odd that Joanne hadn't been calling her daughter all day. Not one call. He told his friend that he had stabbed Joanne to death the night before, bringing the bloody knife in from the car to prove it. Widman was puzzled and shocked. Shortly after this revelation, Steven's father unexpectedly arrived at the empty house. Steven hurriedly hid the drugs and knife from his father while Tylar and Matt went out to the car. As the night started coming to an end, the couple dropped Matt back off at his house at 10 p.m. and left for San Francisco. Steven Colver and Tylar Witt made sure that Joanne would never come between them again. After leaving the Witt home in the early hours of June 12th, they went to Steven's father's old house, where they showered and burned their clothes in the fireplace. They then went to town and took a nap in the parking lot of the local library. When they woke up, they decided to put their plans into action. At this point, their plans were very simple. They would spend their last day in Dorado Hills with friends. They would then drive to San Francisco and eat sweets laced with poison. So they grabbed drinks at the Starbucks, bought food at the 99-cent store, and stopped at Home Depot to buy rat poison. That's when they started hanging out with Matt Widman. So on the morning of Friday, June 12th, 2009, while Tylar and Steven were playing out the beginning stages of their plan, no one heard from Joanne Witt all day. But this behavior was not alarming to her colleagues because she had taken off from work unexpectedly in the past to tend to her daughter. Vincent thought that Joanne and Tylar may have gone on a camping trip over the weekend, so he was not surprised when his calls went unanswered. No one grew concerned about Joanne's whereabouts until she didn't show up for work on Monday, June 15th. Vincent expressed his concerns with his boss, stating that Joanne was having problems with her daughter at home and was not returning his calls. In an attempt to gain some answers, they called authorities to perform a welfare check on Joanne at her home. Her boss also called Joanne's parents to see if they had heard anything from her. While it wasn't unlike her to unexpectedly call out of work, she did always call to let her employers know she would not be coming in. Officers arrived at the Witt home, not finding anything suspicious, but the house was locked and no one was answering the doorbell. This is when Joanne's father, Norbert Witt, arrived and allowed the authorities access inside her home. Authorities advised Norbert to stay outside while they entered the house. When they reached the master bedroom on the second floor, they discovered the most gruesome scene. Joanne Witt lay in bed in a pool of her own blood, covered with a blanket. She had been there for days, stabbed 20 times in the neck and chest. An APB was put out on Tylar and Steven, who were immediately deemed persons of interest in the mother's death, as authorities already knew of the statutory rape charges against Steven that Joanne had started. And almost instantaneously, the media was at the scene, flooding the airwaves with pictures of the couple all over Northern California. Over the weekend, Steven and Tylar had checked into a Holiday Inn in downtown San Francisco. They did some sightseeing, took drugs, and wrote suicide notes in their room, which they later sent to Matt Widman. But their plans didn't pan out exactly as they intended. After mixing rat poison in a red velvet cake, and again in some sugary cereal, they found that they just couldn't eat enough of it for their desired outcome. They tried harming themselves with razors, but they were too dull, and Steven complained that he could not stand the pain. He then suggested that they jump off the roof, but Tylar expressed she was too afraid of heights. It seems the Romeo and Juliet pact they had didn't appear as glamorous as they thought. Instead, they chose to walk away. The couple took San Francisco's subway as far south as they could and walked through the night. On the morning of June 17, 2009, Tylar and Steven walked south on El Camino Real into the town of San Bruno, where an off-duty police officer spotted them. They walked into the San Bruno shopping mall as the officer called in the sighting. They were soon arrested near a dumpster where they were changing their clothes. The knife that killed Joanne Witt was never recovered. While Tylar was being interrogated, she claimed to know nothing of her mother's death. Detectives reminded her that she was under arrest for murder, but Tylar insisted that her mother wasn't dead and claimed her right to legal counsel. Steven's interrogation went a little differently, as he only asked about Tylar and expressed that he was worried about her. Matt Widman gave the suicide notes from Steven and Tylar to authorities, as well as the account of the confession Steven had given him before they left for San Francisco. This evidence painted a pretty clear picture of what occurred that fateful night in the Witt residence. Investigators also found a story written by Tylar entitled "The Killer and His Raven," in which a young couple's love was thwarted by the teen girl's mother and ended in the mother's death. An excerpt from this story read, "At around 1 in the morning, the girl snuck the boy into her house. He stabbed her in her sleep, killing her and freeing themselves." Another piece of evidence authorities had was a letter from Steven to his friends in which he apologized for the sinful escape, while also stating, "Our souls are tainted. We shall be awaiting our fate in the afterworld." The court ruled that Tylar Witt would stand trial in the murder of her mother as an adult, even though she was 14 years old. And even though she would be tried as an adult, she was still able to cut a deal with prosecutors. She would plead guilty to first-degree murder and agree to testify against Steven. If prosecutors believed her testimony against her lover to be truthful, her charge would be reduced from first-degree murder to second-degree murder. This would make her eligible for parole in 15 years rather than 25 years. Prosecutors believed without a shadow of a doubt that with Steven Colver being the only remaining culprit, their evidence and the testimony from Tylar, receiving a guilty verdict for Steven would be rather simple. But there were still some twists to come. On May 17, 2011, the El Dorado County Courthouse prepared for opening statements on the case. Prosecutor Lizette Sood told the jury they would hear a case about a 19-year-old man and a 14-year-old girl and their love affair that led to the violent, almost to the point of sadistic murder of her mother. All of the evidence and admissions pointed to Steven Colver as the person who violently and maliciously stabbed Joanne Witt to get rid of the key witness in the statutory case against him. But the defense painted an entirely different picture of the murder. Defense attorney Dane Weiner stated Tylar was the temptress and the mastermind behind the death of her mother. When Steven arrived at the Witt residence that night, Weiner said, Tylar was holding a knife dripping with blood and admitted to Steven that she had killed Joanne. He covered up the body with a blanket and later told his friends that he had stabbed Joanne in order to protect Tylar. The defense continued that Tylar's diary revealed her true feelings she had for her mother. She often wrote how she wished her mother would die in a car accident or that she just wanted her mother dead. The jury would even hear several of Tylar's friends recount Tylar stating to them that she wanted her mother dead and that she was going to kill her mother. The defense also made it apparent that Steven and Tylar's intention was a joint suicide. So what was the purpose in killing Joanne Witt? If Steven's plan was always suicide, what would be his purpose of killing Joanne? I mean, sure, he could have felt the need to take revenge on her for handing over the evidence authorities needed to arrest him. But the damage was already done. What would killing her do for him at that point? The prosecution called on Tylar to take the stand. She was now 16 and appeared more wholesome and sweet for the jury. She politely answered questions from the prosecutor while playing with her hair. While on the stand, she went through the plan to kill her mother, how she tried to drug Joanne's drink, how Steven arrived at the house with a 10-inch chef knife that he had swiped from the restaurant he worked at. Tylar claimed they went upstairs to Joanne's room together, but when she saw Steven taking a few practice swings at the air, she said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't go inside. She claimed that she stayed in the hallway putting her hands over her ears and humming so she couldn't hear the sounds. The defense began its cross-examination of Tylar by having her recount years of physical altercations with her mother and her numerous attempts at running away. Tylar would claim that her mother was very abusive towards her, but no one was ever able to confirm that Joanne was ever physically abusive towards her daughter. And many people thought she was lying about it because if she was as abusive as she had claimed she was, she would have had a lot more scars and more people would have noticed a lot more bruising. Then the question was raised, who's Toby? Tylar explained to the courtroom that Toby was a demon from hell that lived in her. She had an angel that lived inside her too, named Alex. In times of stress, Tylar claimed she would black out and Toby would take over to deal with whatever was stressing her out. It was then time for Steven Colver to take the stand. In his own defense, to tell the jury what happened the night Joanne Witt was murdered. He stated that when he arrived at Tylar's house that night, her clothes were stained red and she held a bloody knife in her hand as she said, I did it for us. I did it. I finally did it. Mom is gone forever. He also stated that he first met Toby, Tyler's demon, when Joanne found out about their sexual relationship. Tyler hyperventilated and collapsed. Just as quickly as she passed out, she was awake again. But something was off. Steven recounted, "She told me that she was a demon that possessed Tyler's body, and Tyler was too weak to be in control." During cross-examination, prosecutors forced Steven into admitting he had a fascination with knives and that he owned many different types of swords. Prosecutors continued to question if he held a stronger desire to kill Joanne, because if he was charged with statutory rape, he would be branded as a sex offender, ultimately shattering any dream he had of becoming a teacher. It took the jury 4 hours of deliberation and came back with a verdict on June 15, 2011. The jury found Steven Colver guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances of lying in wait and of killing a witness to the statutory rape. Steven and Tyler were formally sentenced on August 12th, with Steven receiving life in prison without the possibility of parole. And he is spending his days in the California Healthcare Facility in Stockton, California. Tyler received 15 years to life with the possibility of parole. She spent her time incarcerated at Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla and was granted parole on August 26, 2022. I tried to find information about Tyler after receiving parole, but was not able to find anything. So hopefully she's laying low and leading a better life right now. It seems that this case has a lot of damning evidence for both parties involved, to be honest. And in the end, Romeo and Juliet ended up pointing fingers at each other. But my question is, if they are pinning the blame on one another for the murder, why did they both need to burn their clothes in the fireplace? What was the purpose of murdering Joanne Witt? This case has left me with more questions than answers, because she was found stabbed 20 times. I mean, yeah, Steven could have been mad about her turning evidence over for statutory. Could have made him angry enough to stab her 20 times. But it would seem more like, with the troubled past the daughter had with her mother, she had more personal pent-up anger towards her mother. That's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. While unsuccessfully pulling off the sad Romeo and Juliet ending, Steven and Tyler still managed to end their tale with a tragedy. So what did you think of today's case? Do you think justice was served? Let me know your thoughts by leaving a comment. Thank you for listening and your support. Stay safe, and I will see you for the next episode. Bye.